Danger! I'll be handling corrosive acids and doing reactions that produce deadly fumes in this video. Doing these reactions without proper safety equipment could cause serious injury or death. Welcome back to part 4. In 1, we sorted our carrot scrap. In 2, we encorded with silver. In 3, we parted the encorded gold with nitric. And what I have here is about 23 troy ounces of recovered gold from our carrot scrap. I've got an additional 2 ounces right here from previous refinings. Now what we're going to do is use incremental nitric dosing and put all this gold in solution and reprecipitate it to come up with a nice 25 troy ounce bar of pure gold. Here we go. All right, here we go. We're going to clean this area out, use nitric acid. We can reuse this on a future refining. Back here is our 3 silver jars full of dissolved silver. And what we'll do to get the silver out of here is I'll burn and add some more pieces of sterling silver. Then I'll put it on heat and bring it up to a boil until there's no more fumes. And I have a few pieces of silver left in here undissolved, and that'll let me know when all the nitric has been consumed. Then we'll filter this out, put it into a container, add copper, and cement all of the silver out of this solution. Before I proceed, something tells me to do one more nitric boil. So I'm going to add some nitric acid here, and we're going to set this thing up on the heat and do one more nitric acid boil here before we go to put this gold in solution. The gold has been boiling in the nitric acid for about 45 minutes, and I'm going to pour it off now into a suitable container and save it to be used later on. And what we'll do now is add some distilled water and do some distilled water rinses, and then add the rinse water to that beaker in the back there, and just save that water because it'll have a little silver in it. I'm adding hydrochloric acid here to the 1000 ml level. Then I'm going to stir it up. We're going to set it up on top of the burner and start adding some heat to it. Here the hydrochloric acid is reacting with the residual nitric in the granules, putting that gold in solution. I've got the 2 ounces of shot here, pure gold shot. And what we're going to do is add 250 milliliters of hydrochloric acid and do a repurification on this pure gold shot. Next, I measure out 250 milliliters of concentrated nitric acid in a separate container. Notice that I did not pre-mix the aqua regia. I'll be adding the nitric in small doses. Here I begin adding small doses of nitric acid to each of the beakers, and this is called incremental nitric acid dosing. Instead of pre-mixing the aqua regia and pouring that on the gold, I've added just hydrochloric acid to each container that has the gold in it, and now I'm putting small doses of nitric acid into each of the beakers to form aqua regia and dissolve our gold. And what this will do is I'll end up adding just enough nitric to just dissolve the gold, and then there will be no excess nitric to have to deal with when we go to precipitate the gold. We've had these on the heat now for about 20 minutes. This is looking good. Just about all the gold has gone into solution here. And I've added about 20 milliliters of nitric to this jar. over here in the big jar, what I'm going to do now is add a little bit more nitric. I've got probably 100 milliliters added so far. You got to add this real slow. Last thing we need is for this big amount of gold to come boiling up out of that beaker and over the top. That would not be good. I've got 1 liter of hydrochloric acid measured out. I'm going to add some of this to our big beaker here. Make sure this reaction does not stall. Here's an example of my inexperience with this large amount of gold. When I started the reaction, I only had 1 liter of hydrochloric acid in there, and I've been adding doses of nitric acid. The first liter of hydrochloric that I added was consumed by the reaction, so there's no free hydrochloric in there. And I've been adding doses of nitric, so there's a bunch of free excess nitric in there with the chloroauric acid solution. When I dumped in that hydrochloric acid, it formed more fresh aqua regia, hit that gold, and started reacting fairly vigorously. Adding the rest of the hydrochloric acid. So after this addition, we'll have about 2 liters of hydrochloric acid in our reaction vessel with the gold here. Alright, I gotta be careful here. We're gonna add a little bit more nitric. Let's see, how much do we got in there so far? We've got about it's only got 75 milliliters left in the glass jar here, so we're gonna add a little bit more of this now. I pretty much got everything dissolved now. I've used up all 250 milliliters of nitric. I put about 20 milliliters in here, and the other 230 went in here, and I think I've got everything in solution here. Might be a few crumbs left in here. Just gonna let these cool down naturally. We're gonna let everything settle out. But before I let this go, I'm going to add a couple of squirts of sulfuric acid, just in case we got some lead in here. I'm going to give this one a couple of, about a half a milliliter of lead, or sulfuric, to take care of any lead in here. There shouldn't be any in here. This is more or less just a repurification. Pull these down off the heat now and let them cool off before we go to the next step. If you look at the bottom of my main beaker over here, you can see that there's lots of white material down here. Thinking it's silver chloride. This is the nitric boil that we did at the beginning of this video. The solution that I'm pulling out of here, and I'm going to test it with hydrochloric acid, and you can see we still got some silver chloride forming in this nitric boil that we did at the beginning of the video here. I was expecting a nice clear solution out there. Didn't get it. Got a bunch of silver left in the solution. What I'm thinking happened is when I inquarted one of those batches, back when I did the inquartation, I had the carat too high, up above 9K, up in this area here. And so the nitric acid wasn't allowed to penetrate deep into the core of each piece, and so it couldn't get out all of the silver and base metals. So some of that remained in our gold that we just tried to dissolve. I've allowed the solution to settle for about 2 hours. I've got my vacuum bottle hooked up. So now what we're going to do is reach in here and we're going to draw the solution off of the beaker and the sediment that's setting down in the bottom of the beaker and collect it in this vacuum flask down here. I've got a filter flask set up here. What I'm going to do is hook up my vacuum to this. I've got a number 2 filter paper in there, and we're going to pull the solution that we just drew off through this filter now. Alright, here we go. I'm going to pour this solution through this filter. Pop the flask out now. I'm going to put the filter, the funnel, in our new flask here. I'll get this one out of the way. Now what we'll do is pull a vacuum on this flask. Alright, we're gonna vacuum in the rest of this solution through this filter now. We're going to get all the sediment in there. It's going to take a while to pull all this through the filter because it should load that filter paper up real good, cause it to clog up. That pulled through fairly quickly. So what I'm going to do here is the repurification. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to this filter and let this pass through the filter. And then we'll have everything, all the gold, in one container when I get done here. That didn't take long to pull through. Here's the junk that we got in the filter. We'll save the filter and put it in our paper storage. And right now what I'm going to do is take the funnel off of here. And we're pretty much good to go, ready to do our precipitation, the moment we've all been waiting for. Got a beaker here with some ice in it. And now what we're going to do is pour our solution back into this beaker carefully. This big one in here now. I always forget to do this before we do the precipitation here. Just gonna do a stannous test, show you what the gold looks like. It's got a real dark stain there. Alright, here we go. We're gonna start adding sodium metabisulfite now and precipitate out the pure gold. I've got a standby beaker over here. I'm kind of concerned that if we have a whole bunch of excess nitric in here, we could see this begin to experience a runaway reaction. And if it does, what I'm going to have to do is pour some of it off into this beaker over here as an emergency procedure. This is like I'm out of my element here. This is way beyond my experience level, so I gotta really watch what I'm doing here. Don't want to boil this thing over, man. So far everything's looking good and the solution is staying cooled off with that chunk of ice. As a precaution, what I'm gonna do is pour some of this solution into this beaker so that I've got a little bit more headroom in case I do get a runaway, unexpected reaction. Adding some sodium metabisulfite. Let's try this one first and see what it's gonna do. If there's excess nitric in here, then what will happen is the gold will redissolve just as fast as it precipitates, and there'll be a lot of heat and fumes, so I'm going to keep a good eye on that. And if there's a whole bunch of excess in there, it could boil over on me. Alright, in a case such as this, ice is your best friend. It keeps this thing cool, and it will contribute to calming the reaction as we precipitate out the pure gold. Alright, let's add some more SMB. It's looking okay. Let's add some more SMB to this side. This ain't looking too bad here. Here we go, more SMB going in right now. Yeah, see them fumes? Starting to make some fumes. That means we got excess nitric in here. And we're going to have to keep adding SMB until all that excess nitric gets consumed. We've added some more ice to this. Keep adding SMB until I get all the gold to precipitate. Who in their right mind would try to
me find 25 ounces of gold in a small setup like I got here. Good Lord. I've got all the excess nitric out of there now. I'm still thinking about all the stuff that can still come up here. Chances are high that we're going to have some platinum group metals in here because I had a handful of white gold that I threw in here. In this refining. Bad in SMB here. Try to get the gold to come down and stay down. I'm seeing signs of success on this one. That white foam on top usually tells me that we're getting pretty close to having everything precipitated. Yeah, that white foam is a welcome sight. That means we're should be fully precipitated on this one now. Back over here and work on this one now. Alright, we're starting to see some white foam on this one as well. Good deal. I think we're getting near the end here. Alright, we're looking like we're complete here. When I see that white foam form on top of the reaction, that's usually an indication that we've got everything to drop out of solution. It looks right. Let's check this one over here. Yeah, that's looking good. I think we're done, man. I think we got everything dropped. Let's reach in here and do a Stannis test. Just make sure we got all the gold to drop. And as you can see by that test, got no stain. Maybe a little bit of platinum in there. Palladium. Alright, same one on this beaker. Stannis test. And that one's looking good too. Might have a little bit of platinum group metals in there, but all the gold has dropped now, so we're good. Both of the solutions have been allowed to settle for about an hour now. What I'm going to do is pour off the waste now into my temporary waste container. Just pour it right off into this container, and then this is going to have some platinum group metals in it. You can tell by the color. And what we'll do is add this to my stock pot that's full of copper. We'll cement the platinum group metals out of this solution that I'm pouring off. I want to get down there to the gold powder and then try to rinse that with a little hydrochloric acid. A little bit of the gold is going to go over with it. That's unavoidable here, I guess. Oh, here's our pure gold powder, man. Look at that. Gorgeous. Wow. That's awesome. All right, I've got everything consolidated into one beaker now. What we'll do is I'm going to give it a few rinses and get most of the chemicals rinsed off here. Put it in this other temporary storage container that I have. I'm going to give it a couple of quick rinses with some water. And I think we're going to call it right here. This will be the end of part 4. And tomorrow, after I go in and get some sleep, man, it's about midnight right now. Tomorrow we'll come back out and we get to do this again. Refine it one more time, and then we'll melt it up into a bar, and it'll be done. It should be done tomorrow, part 5. All right, we did it. We got our first refining out of the way. Got our pure gold powder here, setting in some distilled water. It went pretty good. Had a few bumps, but we got through it. And tomorrow we're going to do the same thing. We're going to give it a second refining, and then we're going to melt it up into a nice 25 troy ounce pure gold bar. Stay tuned for that one. That's going to be the grand finale. This will conclude part 4 of the 25 troy ounce pure gold bar refining video. Thanks for watching.